Cartels, please. Saparsha Bhagavat Virahan Janita Vilapa. It's on the board here, I think. Ye Anilo Prema Dhana Karuna Pracho Anyone on harmonium? Ye Anilo Prema Dhana Koruna Pracho Anilo Pracho Ye Anilo Prema Dhana Koruna Pracho little slower. Prema Dhana Karuna Pracho. Try to listen carefully, not too fast. Hino Prabhu Kota Kela Charya Dako Hino Prabhu Kota Kela Charya Dako Kahamora Prabhupad Kahasanatan Kahamora Prabhupad Kahasanatan Kahamora Prabhupad Kahasanatan Kahamora Prabhupad Kahasanatan Kahadasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Kahamora Kahamora Bhattayuga Kahaviraj Kahamora Bhattayuga Kahaviraj Eka kale kota kela gonatara Eka Ashane kutibo mata Anale pashibo Ashane kutibo mata Anale pashibo Gorango gunera niri kota kilai abo. Gorango gunera niri kota kilai abo. Se sabha sangira sange ye koilo bila se sabha sangira sange ye koilo bila Se sabha sangira sange ye koilo bila sangira sange ye koilo bila Se sangana paya kande narotamada Se sangana kande narotamada Se sangana paya Kande narotamada Ye Anilo Prema Dhana Corona Racho Anilo Hino Prabhu Kota Kela Charya Thako Oh Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Satashrila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupad Ki Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Satashrila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Satashrila Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Satashrila Satchitananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Satashrila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Srila Prabhupada's Tirobhav Maha Mahotsav Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Go Premanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachardine Nirvasesha Sunyavari Pastachadesha Tarine. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shvayam Rupagadamayam Dadati Shvapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagarpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. We welcome all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis here today, especially our God brothers, maybe God sister, yes. Haladar Prabhu, Paramgati Prabhu, Chaitanya Bhagavat Prabhu, Sankas Prabhu, and is Krishna Kirtan Mata here? Is she? She's not here. If there are any other God brothers and God sisters, please forgive me for any offenses I commit to you. And we seek your kind blessings, please, to speak a few words on this most special day of the year. We've just sung a song by Narottam Das Thakur, which we usually sing on the day of the departure of the great Vaishnavas from our presence, known as Tirobhav. Today we are celebrating the Tirobhav Maha Mahotsava of Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All the great acharyas, those eternal associates of the Lord who come to this world, can be addressed as Prabhupada. But we specifically, of course, in ISKCON, taking shelter of His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So today we honor that day which occurred in 1977, that is 45 years ago today, on the Vaishnava calendar, Vedic calendar. November the 14th, 1977, which, like many other dates maybe, is indelibly imprinted in the hearts of all followers of Srila Prabhupada. Many of you did not have the at least opportunity for, you could say, the direct association of Srila Prabhupada. Some of us had a little bit. Some of the fortunate souls, all are fortunate, who have come to the shelter of Srila Prabhupada in different ways. Some were very fortunate to get very much intimate association with Srila Prabhupada. Others, many of Srila Prabhupada's initiated disciples, never saw him, you could say, his vapu, his form, direct form. They were initiated by post. We didn't have internet or Zoom in those days. Many were initiated in the last year or two. They may have seen Prabhupada once. Others, here in France, Srila Prabhupada came 5 or 6 times to Paris, France. Here, 2 times to New Mayapur. In London, we were fortunate. Srila Prabhupada would come. Every year, he missed 1 year. I think maybe 74 or 5 he didn't come. But otherwise, and sometimes he would come twice a year. In 73, he stayed for nearly 3 months in the manor. In that sense, we're fortunate. But the real fortune is that we somehow or another embrace Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet and keep them in our hearts eternally. We embrace his mood and mission, his instructions. Srila Prabhupada, of course, this is regarding the Avirbhav, which means when they appear in this world. Prabhupada said it is not a festival of flowers and incense. It is one of surrendered service. We may give some lip service, maybe some pujas, which is also wonderful. But the real wonder is when the real change of heart takes place. Srila Prabhupada has and is performing the greatest miracle. Unseen, even sometimes by aspirants, some level of practitioner. The real miracle which is taking place. Almost impossible to conceive that, especially in this age of Kali, especially in the Western world, nobody could conceive of what is happening. It's not even understood at all, practically speaking, by the majority of persons what is happening. By the grace of Srila Prabhupada. How millions upon millions, nay billions, are being life-changed. Everyone on this planet, to some degree, is receiving a drop of that merciful compassion. It is the compassion of Srimati Radharani flowing through Srila Prabhupada. Who would have known? We turn the clock back to 1965. No one would have imagined the spreading of Krishna consciousness around the world. Even in India, who would have thought? Even amongst Prabhupada's godbrothers. Sincere devotees or whatever they may be, but who would conceive of this? That one amongst them would take this message to heart and distribute it like this. Priti fiti yachi yati nagaradi gram sava tritpachori moranam. To spread the holy name in every town and village. Maybe in India. But everywhere? Even in Muslim countries? Communist countries? African countries? Atheistic countries? Impossible. Many times, Prabhupada heard this. This is not possible. Everything is possible if one has firm faith. Yasya devi parabhaktir yata devi tatagaro. In the spiritual master and in the Lord, go together. Nothing is impossible. Everything can be revealed. It's not that Prabhupada came to the West with some kind of blueprint method. Sometimes people comment that he was a good businessman, therefore he was successful. What nonsense. There's nothing to do. It's simply, completely dedication to the instruction of one's Gurudev, one's spiritual master. So today, I remember on this occasion, perhaps in 25 years past, in Sri Vrindavan Dham, on the occasion of Srila Prabhupada's anniversary of his Tirobhav, it was customary every year that devotees would say a few words in honor, in praise of Srila Prabhupada. Of course, this is an eternal, unending subject matter. But one year, one disciple, sannyas disciple of, I don't know which Puri Maharaj it was, but one of the Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, Puri Maharaj, one of his disciples, made an offering in reasonably good English, little broken. And he said, because amongst Prabhupada's godbrothers, they address him as Swami Maharaj, which was the name given at his sannyas, Swami Maharaj. Amongst all, he said, amongst all of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj's, Srila Prabhupada's disciples, Swami Maharaj, and this was coming from him, alone fully understood that message, to take this message all over the world. And he specifically said, who else is doing this? To attack science, modern science, so-called, and sense gratification. What a challenge. What a challenge. Basically, we're challenging every single thing that modern society stands for. Everything. Top to bottom. Welfare work. Everything inclusive. Education. So-called rights and this and democracy and common. You name it. There's nothing that gets out of that. History. Everything. Alone. Prabhupada went alone. In terms of external view, he was not alone. The entire disciplic succession of Panchatattva, everyone's there. We cannot see anything. Hardly anything at all. Blind. Om Jnana Timirandasya. Prabhupada came to bring light to the world. Dark, ignorance, heading on a hell-bent journey dedicated to sense gratification and false knowledge. It dawns on one as the days pass by just how important Krishna consciousness is. Look at the state of affairs of the world. There's two things going simultaneously, you could say. The almost imperceptible, in some cases, spreading of Krishna consciousness. It may not be related, you may not agree, but to some extent it's quite unique. It's almost inconceivable that now the Prime Minister of England is a Hindu. 50 years ago, you would have thought that you would be a madman to think like that. Impossible. Welcomed. Welcomed. Of course, what they'll do is another thing. At least they've been to the temple and paid their obeisances in front of Srila Prabhupada and garlanded Srila Prabhupada. Something is there. Srila Prabhupada wanted this, that the leaders of society would pay their obeisance in respect to the Lord. So it's something. Big change. Millions of people, hundreds of millions of people are vegetarian. Many reasons may be there. Primary reason, it's not our goal. It's not our goal. But it is a preliminary symptom of, let's say, opening. Srila Prabhupada's mass distribution of prasadam. Mass. 800 million copies of Srila Prabhupada's books distributed, at least, by the way. Tens of millions have not been recorded. Millions of persons all over the planet chanting Hare Krishna. We may not be chanting so purely, but still something is there. How many temples? 800 temples around the world. Restaurants, farms, long way to go. Prabhupada wanted every house a temple. But it's a big change. Even in India, revitalization of, you could say, some kind of spiritual awareness. And at the same time, there's a maddened increase in the temperature of materialism. Simultaneous. What is Krishna's plan will be unveiled. But we must plant these seeds. Prabhupada took this in Africa when we were I spent a few years in East Africa in the 70s. Srila Prabhupada said to Brahmananda, the Swami at that time, one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Brahmananda Maharaj was saying to Prabhupada, practically it's a waste of time preaching here, Prabhupada. Only the Indians are interested. The black people come, but they don't stay. They like the prasadam, as long as there's enough to eat. Then they go away, and sometimes they steal things. It's like a waste of time. Prabhupada said, no, it is not. He said, we are here to plant seeds. Even if nobody joins in this lifetime, the seeds will be planted. They enter the consciousness and carry the soul to a better form to continue. There is no loss. We can do better, but there is no loss. So we're going to read this verse now, which is very relevant. Turning the clock back to 1977. We read these verses when Srila Prabhupada news came to us. I don't know where you all were at that time. Paramgati Prabhu, where were you? 1977, November 14th. Where were you? Is he here?
No.
Oh. Where is he? Where was he? Where is he? I guess others were in France. Chaitanya Bhagavat, were you in France or England?
Yes.
France?
Yeah.
In New Mayapur. Haladar Prabhu, you here? Where? Where were you on that day?
Quand Prabhupada est parti, où est-ce que tu étais?
In Maya. In Maya? We're always in Maya. Prabhupada. One time one devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm sometimes Prabhupada, I'm in Maya. Prabhupada said, no, you're not. You're always in Maya. Where was Sankas? Where's Sankas? He's here, but he doesn't understand English. Someone can ask him, you were here? New Mayapur? Yes? Oui? Oui.
T'étais ici quand Srila Prabhupada est parti? Hein?
Oui. I don't know what you were going through. We received the news early in the morning. Srila Prabhupada departed in the evening in Vrindavan, which was how many hours? 4 hours or something? So it's like fairly middle of the night in Europe, late night. So we heard Mangalarti, the news. Unbelievable news. Even with the news that was coming, we didn't have internet, as you know. Messages were sometimes unclear. Mistakes were made in communication. Even telephoning was not always so easy, especially from India, especially from Vrindavan. You could queue up all day long to make a phone call and not get anywhere. Go to a special office, you didn't have their own phones practically. Anyway, the news came probably by phone early in the morning at Mangalarti. And every devotee is a person. We're not Mayavadis. We're all individuals. That's why there are differences. Prabhupada said that to Mukunda Maharaj one time, that he was saying something about differences of opinion between devotees and so on. Prabhupada said that proves that we're not Mayavadis. Individuals. Every individual has its own uniqueness. That uniqueness simply has to be connected to Krishna, that's all. Just like on the altar there is so much variety, but it is all for the pleasure of Krishna. It would be quite boring if every single thing was grey. Everything. The crown, the dress, the flowers, the altar, the floor, everything, including the deities. It would be quite boring. Prabhupada has given life to the variety, life to the individuals. So naturally everyone will respond differently. It is not artificial. Some were crying, some were stunned, some were in disbelief, some were calling out, others practically fainting. It seems like a material, you could say, effect. It is not. It is most purifying, spiritual experience. To feel the separation of the devotee. Ramananda Roy, when asked by Lord Chaitanya what is the greatest suffering, said there I know no greater suffering than to be separated from the association of the devotee. There is none. Everything else, you could say, is suffering in of itself. But this is the greatest suffering, to be separated from that association. There's another side to this. I'll better get round to the verse, which we'll read now. Otherwise we'll never get there. We could go on all morning on this topic. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So which verse have you got on the board? 47. I'm going to use my book because it's marked there. That's the wrong one. So many things in here. There we go. Atmanang Shochati Dinam Abandang Viklavashubhihi Stanav Asicha Vipine Svusvarang Paruroda Sa Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandang Viklavashubhihi Stanavasitya Vipine Susvarang Prarodava. I don't have any tissue paper, please. Atmanang Shochati Dinam Abandang Viklavashubhihi Stanavasitya Vipine Susvarang Prarodava. Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandang Viklavashubhihi Stanavasitya Vipine Susvarang Prarodavasa.
Atmanam Sochati Dinam
Atmanam Shochati Dinam
Bandhum Vikravashrubihi Stanavasitya Vipine
Stanavasitya Vipine
Susvaram Praurodasa
Susvarang Prarodasa. Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandang Viklavashubhihi Stanam Asitya Vipine Susvaram Prarodasa.
Atmanam Shochati Dinam
Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandang Viklavashubhihi Tanavasitya Vipine Susvaram Prarodasa. Ladies, Vaishnavis.
Atmanam Shochati Dinam
Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandang Viklavashubhihi Dhanam Vipine Susvaram Prarodasa. Any senior ladies? Let the senior ladies, please. Let seniors chant first, if you can, please, with us. That was normally the system with Prabhupada. Any senior ladies? Don't know who's here. Atmanam shochati dinam abandang viklava shubhi astanavasicca vipine susvaram prarurodasa. I'm just going to go on to the verse and the purport because time is running. This is from the chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, as you may see. I don't know if it's written. 4:28-47. And this is dealing with Puranjan. Puranjan literally means the enjoyer within the body. It's a very relevant subject. Puranjana becomes a woman in his next life. So what happens is that figurative personality, it's a figurative in this case, but in reality, we're all Puranjan. We're all attached to the body. So he becomes, because he was very attached to his wife, he became a woman in his next lifetime. And he was known as Vaidarbhi, daughter of King Vidarbha. And he was lucky. She was lucky. She had a very devotional husband. King, was it Malayadvaj, I think? King Malayadvaj. And this king took spiritual life very seriously. Retired to the family to the forest along with his queen, and performed devotional service in the latter part of his life to attain Godhead. He quit his body. When the queen realized, Queen Vaidarbhi, that her husband had quit his body, now this is her response. Being now alone, and a widow in that forest, the daughter of Vidarbha began to lament, incessantly shedding tears which soaked her breasts, and crying very loudly. Materially, we see this is also common. When a family member leaves their body, even one's budgerigar or one's pussycat, people cry. What to speak of their husband or their especially husband. Especially in India we see the son, the husband, for the wife it's unbearable. It's her very life. She lives for it. Modern society has zero understanding of this, practically. Because they don't understand the goal of life. Goal is to go back to Godhead. So her husband was very elevated soul, and her attachment to him was her great good fortune. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, figuratively, the queen is supposed to be the disciple of the king. Thus, when the mortal body of the spiritual master expires, his disciples should cry exactly as the queen cries when the king leaves his body. However, the disciple and the spiritual master are never separated. Because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple as long as the disciple follows strictly the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called the association of vani, of words. Physical presence is called vapuhu. As long as the spiritual master is physically present, the disciple should serve the physical body of the spiritual master. And when the spiritual master is no longer physically existing, the disciple should serve the instructions of the spiritual master. This was Srila Prabhupada's teaching. He taught something very special, which is now realized, really, because we see 45 years later, the same principle applies. Everyone to this day has the opportunity to serve Srila Prabhupada, to associate with Srila Prabhupada by following his instructions. It doesn't matter whether you're directly initiated or not. The instruction is the most important thing. Srila Prabhupada I would read, but we don't have time. I compiled very many different quotes of Srila Prabhupada on when he actually met his spiritual master for the first time in 1922. So the other aspect of today, or this year rather, is this is the 100th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's meeting with his eternal spiritual master, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. In 1922, on the rooftop of a very small Gaudiya Math temple, it was the only one at that time, in a suburb of Calcutta called Otadingi, on the roof, Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj was giving talk, Bhajan. Small group of followers were gathered, and one of the persons who had been frequenting those meetings on occasion was known as Narendranath Mullik, who was from a very well-to-do family, and his family had been contributing a little to the Gaudiya Math. Narendranath happened to be a friend. They were similar age and friends. With our Srila Prabhupada at that time was Abhay Charan. Narendranath tried to convince Abhay, come and see this sadhu. He's very special. At that time, our Prabhupada's father was pure. He was also a pure devotee, a great devotee of Krishna. But he wasn't following Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, but he was nonetheless a devotee of Krishna. Prabhupada was brought up like that from birth. In fact, at Prabhupada's birth, they called an astrologer. The astrologer predicted, looking at his astrology, at the age of 70, this person will cross the water and establish and preach the message of Krishna and establish 108 temples all over the world. That was a prediction at his birth. Of course, who would have thought? Right from birth, Prabhupada was exposed to Krishna consciousness, worshipping deities after about 4 or 5 years old. Radha Krishna. Rathayatra, when he was a young boy, he organized. Clearly obvious, but as Krishna's arrangements there is all part of the system, Prabhupada in his own words said that he drifted away from that practice. He became a very avid follower of the Congress Party with Mahatma Gandhi, even before that. Before the Gandhiism, he was somewhat inclined. He even said that I was inclined to impersonalism. I read it this morning. Quote. And he wasn't very inclined to go. He said, I've seen so many sadhus. Not interested. Hypocritical, false, materialistic. I've seen so many of them. They don't impress me anymore. My father invites them practically every day. Not impressed. Why should I go and see another one? Narendranath insisted. Prabhupada said he practically forced me to go. Eventually I agreed. And he went. And when they entered the house up the stairs, because Narendranath was a little familiar, they went up to the rooftop. And as is customary, like or not like, when one sees a sadhu, one bows down, at least in Indian culture. In the West, we used to show our respects also to the priest. Not bowing, but offering, respect to the priest, the teacher, the doctor, the policeman. They were the most respected people in society. If you didn't bow down to the teacher, you got a good caning. That was in America, 100 years ago. If you didn't bow down when the teacher came in, 2 canes, whack, whack. Discipline. Now 0 discipline. If the teacher doesn't bow down, he gets put in prison practically. Absolute nonsense system. No respect. Elders. If you didn't get up when an older person got on the bus, whack. My father would smack me on the ear. You little brat, get up. And we're not propagating we should do that now. But the point is, respect has been lost. Elders were respected. What to speak of persons carrying responsibility? Nothing. Is a cultureless society. Cultureless. People push them off the chairs sometimes. I've seen it. Anyway, back to Prabhupada. Paying his obeisance. At that time, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was actually speaking. There are different reports. Prabhupada letters said slightly differently. He was speaking about the importance of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. Not just in Calcutta. All over the world. And when he saw them come in, because everyone there practically was a young, almost. You are young men. You should make your life's mission. You are educated. You could see Prabhupada was dressed in Gandhi and Kadi. He was a follower of Gandhi at that time, at least the mission of Gandhi. You should make your life's mission to preach this Krishna consciousness all over the world in the English language. I was quite taken aback at the boldness of such a statement. What is this? We're a dependent country. We're dependent on the British. They're controlling us. How will this message be heard? They won't listen to a poor, poverty-stricken Indian. What have you got to tell us? It's proof that you know nothing. You're poor. Your religion is meaningless. You're poor. I've heard this. We faced this in Malaysia. Christians preaching Hinduism is bogus. Worshipping the devil. That's why you're all poor. No one will listen. They want material things. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj strongly rebuked Srila Prabhupada's objection. This Krishna consciousness, there's no question, first of all, of independence in this world. You may say China is independent and this one, Japan, so on. But there is no question of independence. Everyone is dependent. No one is free. No question of liberation in this world. Bogus. This Krishna consciousness message is so important. It cannot wait for your so-called Swaraj. That will not change anything. This message is far too, it goes above all relativity. It must be delivered. Otherwise there's no value. Life is wasted away. He preached very forcibly. Prabhupada was very impressed. He's never met anyone like this before in his life. So confident and so powerfully presenting the philosophy of Gita, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He left thinking, now I know that this mission is in the hands of a very, very capable person. Prabhupada said, I practically accepted him on the spot as my eternal spiritual master. He took that instruction as his life and soul, several times reconfirmed through his journey and his occasional association with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj. Prabhupada said, I only associated with him a handful of times, a little bit more than that, but not much. He wasn't hanging around Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj. He was a householder, married, family, business, living in a different place. But he made that instruction his very life and soul, his life blood, to spread Krishna consciousness everywhere. And we can see, by taking that instruction as one's life and soul, how his Guru Maharaj Krishna empowered him to perform this miracle which we heard of earlier. Transformation. When Prabhupada arrived in Boston in 65, he said, how is this going to be possible? As soon as I say, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit sex, they will say, Swamiji, go home. I never thought it would be possible, Prabhupada said. Somehow, by the mercy of Krishna, this miracle has taken place. So, to even get them to chant Hare Krishna, how will that be possible? But Krishna has his plan. Krishna conscious means simply to fit into Krishna's plan. Not to make Krishna fit into our plan. That's our tendency. No. The purpose is to transform our perspective or our perception to be pleasing to Krishna. Krishna's plan. Pure devotees reveal that plan step by step. Through them it is revealed. The next verse is very informative. O best of kings, she says to her husband, please get up. Just see the world surrounded by water and infested with rogues and so-called kings. This world is very much afraid, and it is your duty to protect her. She can't believe it. Her husband has left his body. Prabhupada says, whenever an acharya comes, following the superior orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his representative, he establishes the principles of religion as enunciated in Bhagavad Gita. Religion means abiding by the orders of the Personality of Godhead. I jump forward. The perfect disciples of the Acharya try to relieve the situation of the world. Everyone is in Maya. It's a dangerous situation. Samastiti ye padapalava plavam mahat padam punya yashomarare. The devotee tries to relieve this. It's like a parent tries to relieve the child of suffering by sincerely following the instructions of the spiritual master. This itself, Prabhupada, I remember one time I think it was in London, Prabhupada, one person came offering nice donation, not that that's not significant. Prabhupada he writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the spiritual master is not pleased when someone brings him money, but he is pleased when he sees a follower following the regulated principles and chanting Hare Krishna. Now that doesn't mean he's not pleased either when someone brings money, but that's only a step, tiny step, beginning step. The real miracle is when the heart is transformed. Much of the time people give money hoping to get some punya or getting some material reward. But that, unknowing to them, will help them on their path gradually to actually practice devotional service by the grace of the pure devotee. So when he sees someone actually following the regulated principles and chanting the holy name, the devotee is very, very happy. Very happy. It's like a son or a child returning home again. At the present moment, practically the entire world is afraid of rogues and non-devotees. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is started to save the world from irreligious principles. Prabhupada said, in its darkest hour. Everyone should cooperate with this movement in order to bring about actual peace and happiness in this world. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes down upon this earth to establish the principles of religion, so his representative, the spiritual master, also comes to re-establish religious principles. It is the duty of the disciples to take charge of the mission of the spiritual master and to execute it properly. Otherwise, the disciple should decide, because the wife Vaidarbi, and seeing her husband had left his body, decided to leave hers also. Her life had no value anymore. So Prabhupada says, otherwise the disciple should decide to die along with the spiritual master. Two kinds of death, physical and just abandoning one's spiritual practices, which is the real, you could say, misfortune. And that happens, maybe everyone's experienced a degree of that at different times. Doubts and shortcomings. His Prabhupada one time said, don't be surprised about those who leave, be surprised about those who stay. It's not easy in Kali Yuga. But if we stick firmly to the instruction of the spiritual master, humbly, taking shelter of his lotus feet, his instructions, trying to execute those instructions by distributing Prabhupada's books, chanting the holy name enthusiastically, not just like a tape recorder or something, mechanical. Spreading that to others, giving prasadam to others, inviting others to Krishna's house. Everywhere is Krishna's house, but particularly to places where Krishna is glorified. Somehow or another, trying to engage others in Krishna's service. That is the duty of the follower. Otherwise, Prabhupada said, we're dead. Those who have life preach. In other words, to execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple, this is the other angle of understanding, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. This is disciple. Not that we give up the body, physical, but rather we offer the body and the mind in the service of the spiritual master by using them to fulfill his will. When one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As explained before, this means meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the instruction of the spiritual master. This is technically called Vani Seva. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states in the Bhagavad Gita commentary on the verse, and this verse was what Prabhupada says was one of his main incentives or inspirations to push forward this movement. Vyavasayat bikabodhir ekeha kurunandana. That one should serve the words of the spiritual master. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, the instruction of my spiritual master is both my sadhana, that means practice, and my sadhya, my goal. Success or failure mean nothing to me. Only the intention to serve that order of my Gurudev. Whether I am sent to heaven or hell makes no difference. The only thing that matters to me is the instruction of my spiritual master. And this was the conviction that Prabhupada has, to always worship that instruction of his spiritual master. And Prabhupada writes, I think in his final of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, his final words, spiritual master lives forever. And those who follow his instructions, they also live with him forever. It's an eternal relationship. Spiritual master never dies. Their words, their instructions are eternal. They remain forever. It's just a matter of whether we want to associate with them or not. If we're sincere and fortunate, we will. If we're not, we won't. We want to associate with our mind. We have the choice. Simply by following on that line, one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And time is going. I'll read one more thing. A sincere devotee who follows the instructions of the spiritual master certainly gets direct instructions from his heart, from the super soul. So practically speaking, Prabhupada mentioned this many times, that if we sincerely follow, Krishna will guide us within our hearts, even if it appears to be a mistake. From the practical point of view, it is not a mistake. It is what is required, you could say, for us to let go of this material illusion. Wake up. A wake-up call. Oh, Srila Prabhupada, giving us all this opportunity. Every living entity is giving this opportunity. Some point of time. Our desire should be to try to make it quicker. To bring this message to more people through distributing more books, more prasadam, more kirtan, more preaching online or offline, whatever it is we can do. Just share. This is everyone's eternal right. Our nature is to serve Krishna. Like a doctor going into a battlefield, sure, there are many, many injured, and he may have to go to certain persons who are most easy to cure. But he has to do his 24/7 service practically to try to help living entities who are suffering in this world, knowingly or unknowingly. Even more dangerous are those who think they're not suffering. because they're just causing their own future suffering more and more. Pure devotee can see this. He cries in compassion for the suffering living entities, praying to be an instrument to relieve them of their ignorance, of their present and future suffering due to lack of Krishna consciousness. So the least we can do every moment, but especially on this day, is to meditate. Meditate how I can sacrifice my life. We may not be able to do very much, but at least a little bit. Srila Prabhupada would cry in gratitude. He would say, I thank you very much. You are helping me more to fulfill the instruction of my spiritual master. Prabhupada was he felt so indebted to his followers who were distributing books, to those who were trying to establish farms, schools, restaurants, temples, and on, scientific preaching, for the pleasure of Krishna. So let's try our best. I'm sure we can meditate on this a little bit more. Would I do this in front of Srila Prabhupada? Would I say this in front of Srila Prabhupada? How would I feel if Prabhupada were here now? What will we do? He is here, but we can't see. Our eyes are still blinded with self-centered perspectives. He is here now. Krishna is in the heart. He can see everything. Am I really acting for the pleasure of Krishna? Or am I trying to get what I want in my present condition? Am I hiding? Am I hiding things in my heart? Am I maintaining these separatist desires, mentalities? Surely we are. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, if we dedicate our lives, Krishna will remove all these anarthas. We can't do it. They're the result of millions of lifetimes. In a moment, Krishna can just remove the curtain. Om Agyana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. In a moment, spiritual master opens our eyes, we wake up. Wake up, sleeping souls. Wake up. We're not here to make a comfort zone. We've been reading in the morning, but chanting Hare Krishna, but there must be some austerity. Otherwise it will not be effectual. I mean, stepping out of our comfort zone, making a step. Please, engage me in your service, my Lord. Uncomfortable, sometimes, for our conditioned state. You think it was easy for Srila Prabhupada dealing with drug-crazed hippies on the east, suburb of New York? Getting his visa to go to America, you think it was easy? At his age, 70 years of age, with no money? No, it wasn't. But Prabhupada did that for us, for the pleasure of his spiritual master and the welfare of all living entities. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let us show our unending, everlasting gratitude. And by not just thank you, but by acting on it, trying to change our lives for Prabhupada's pleasure. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Tirobhav Maha Mahotsava ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Okay. So who's the MC? We have an MC. I don't know if Lochan's here. He usually ends up going into the kitchen. I don't know if he's there now. Oh, you're here. I'm sure your heart is in the kitchen, wanting to cook for Prabhupada. 1,000,008 preparations. Who's the MC?
Sorry, Gopaswami Prabhu usually used to do it. Yeah.
Gopaswami Prabhu is the MC. He's not here. Someone can bring him. He's in Paris. Yeah, so, I mean, there's so many things going on at once, and we understand that, but try to make a checklist of these festivals, of, what's required. MC is one. MC is sometimes the hardest service on this day. Sometimes. You've got to keep, I've gone an hour overdue almost, half an hour, but that was offering, inclusive. So, we have an hour. At what time? 2 hours. 2 hours to Abhishek. So the MC has to find out who wants to speak. He doesn't necessarily have to do it himself. He has to get someone else to do that with a list of speakers. And then he has to choose speakers in order of usually seniority. Man, woman, like that. And then he has to try to restrict them to a certain time frame. Not more than 1 hour each. I'm only saying this after I've spoken, so I got that. Yeah, that depends on how many devotees there are and how many speak also, by the way. So it's quite important. Usually you collect it before the morning starts. But now we are where we are, so we do the best we can. In Vrindavan, maybe not now, it's already passed, but there might be like 500 devotees who want to speak. They have 3 hours, and you get maximum 2 minutes each. Maximum. And there's a devotee sat there, no one else can see, sat right there with like a board. 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds. Now, there's someone trying to carry on the stage, Finish. Yes. May not be quite as bad as that, but it's like that with time. So who's the MC? We don't have many volunteers here.
Why you don't make a list,
Huh?
Ask those who want to speak, make a list, and
Garanga would like to be the one to make the list of who can speak. So, well, we've got to readjust ourselves. Now, center stage, always Prabhupada, but facing Srila Prabhupada now. Face Srila Prabhupada. No backs to Prabhupada, please. Everyone, men on this side, ladies on that side, gap in the middle, sideways towards Srila Prabhupada. Get the idea? Let's adjust ourselves quickly. Quickly adjust ourselves. Please take all this